Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing another D&D 3.5 Prestige class review, and we're going to be looking at the Duelist Prestige class, one of the originals from the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now the Duelist is essentially for characters that want to be good duelists. You're going to be like a musketeer, one of the three musketeers. You're going to be a swashbuckler. This existed before the swashbuckler class. And if you want to be a character that does the kind of fencing like they do in like the Princess Bride or the Scarlet Pimpernel or any of those movies, and countless others, I mean any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies or anything like that, you get the idea. That's the kind of archetype we're going for, somebody that focuses on finesse, skill in parrying and dodging over having armor to protect them, because duelists don't wear armor. Kind of similar to monks. So we'll see how that goes for them. Duelists are definitely an interesting archetype, and again, these came out before the Swashbuckler did, although not that long, because Complete Warrior was very soon afterward. And so there's a lot of parallels with the Swashbuckler base class, which can wear armor, and like the Duelist, relies a lot on their intelligence score alongside their dexterity score. So if you're one of those sorts that's really into the idea of your character outsmarting his opponents in a fight, being quicker and more intelligent in where he lands his blows, then this prestige class might be for you. We will see. So to become a duelist, you're going to need a +6 base attack bonus. So you're going to have to be at least character level 6 before you get into this, and then for your 7th level you can take duelist. You're going to need 3 ranks in perform and 5 ranks in tumble, and then you're going to need dodge, mobility, and weapon finesse for feats. So perform, again, so like for the swashbuckler base class, if you wanted to come into this from that, perform is not a class skill for them, but you could still take it anyway cross class and be easily able to get in. Fighters, same thing. They would have no problem getting into this, although you are giving up a significant aspect of being a fighter. And if you want to come into this as a rogue, you can absolutely do that. You'll have to wait till level 8 because of your slower base attack bonus, but you can still do it definitely. And then as for the feats, well, if your character level 6, then no matter what, if you're willing to spend all of your feats and you have, good enough dexterity, then you can take dodge, mobility, and weapon finesse. If you're a human, then you'll be able to take 1 extra feat, but otherwise that is going to lock down all your feat choices. So I would call the duelist fairly restrictive. It does require some skill investment. It does require a base attack bonus. That's its kind of absolute minimum requirement to make sure that you're not sneaking into this prestige class too early. And then again for feats, it is locking down 3 feats, and dodge is, maybe okay. Weapon finesse is decent. Mobility, I mean, they're not great feats for a reason. Spring attack is not that great either. So overall, again, pretty restrictive, but not too restrictive. You're not going to have to jump through a ton of hoops. It's just going to make a lot of decisions about your character before you even get into this prestige class. So we'll see if it's worth it. It's going to give you a D10 hit die, full base attack bonus, a good reflex save, and 4 plus intelligence modifier skill points per level. So it's kind of geared a little bit toward a rogue, or actually the swashbuckler. Again, there's a lot of inspiration from this that was taken for the swashbuckler. And you're going to get a pretty decent list of skills, no stealth skills. So if you're coming into this as a rogue, you're going to be not too happy. You will get listen and spot at least, which is nice, and tumble, which is going to be very important. You're going to get proficiency with all simple and martial weapons, but no type of armor or shield. That's okay. You'll probably still have whatever armor proficiency you want, but the issue is that a lot of duelist features do not let you wear armor at all. A lot of classes limit you to light armor. This is a big part of D&D 3.5, but not very many, aside from the monk, are meant to be fighting in melee combat without any armor at all. So the parallel to the monk is pretty strong here, obviously minus the mystical angle. So we'll see how this plays out as we go through the features. At level 1, you're going to get canny defense. This is kind of the core feature, and it's very similar to the insightful strike that the swashbuckler gets in that it uses intelligence, but it's a little bit different. You add 1 point of intelligence bonus per duelist class level to your dexterity bonus while you're wielding a melee weapon. If you're caught flat-footed or otherwise denied your dexterity bonus, you lose this bonus. And you have to not be wearing armor or using a shield. So you're going to get at most +1 to your armor class in return for giving up your armor. Now, unless you're wearing padded armor, this means an immediate downgrade in your armor class. You could, of course, and many people will, make the argument that we should only be looking at the base value of the armor here, because you can always get bracers of armor for the same cost as the enhancement bonus on your armor would be. And that is true, but your base armor value does make up a pretty significant proportion of your armor class for most characters. I mean, anywhere from +2 to +3 to +8, or even more in some rare cases. So it is an important part of your armor class, and getting a +1 that might go up to maybe +3, +4, +5. If you look at just like the basic array and assume that you put both of your +2 stat modifiers in dexterity and intelligence, then you're going to be getting on average, a +2 or +3 to your armor class from this. And while that's okay, it's essentially just replacing what you would get from the base armor value of studded leather or a mithril chain shirt. So looking at this feature, you're really not getting much of anything. You do get to add it to your touch armor class, but the amount of limitations here, like not getting to keep it when you're flat-footed, is a big problem. Even when I was very new to 3.5 as a much younger player, I definitely remember looking at this feature and being very disappointed. After all, monks get to keep their wisdom bonus to armor class without having to worry about whether they're flat-footed or not. And having this kind of limitation really holds back this feature right off the bat. But we'll keep going. We'll see what else you get from this prestige class. That's your only level 1 feature. At level 2, you're going to get improved reaction, which is a +2 bonus on initiative checks. And that will improve later. Initiative is really important. It's in some ways it's the best stat in the game to have a modifier to, because if you go first, then you are the one that gets to determine the shape of the combat. But for a duelist, that's really not that important. Not that you don't care when you go, but unless you're coming into this as a rogue who wants to get off sneak attack before anybody else can become unflat-footed and act normally and lose that sneak attack damage for free, you really aren't going to be getting a whole lot out of this feature compared to another character. A wizard would love this, but the duelist, it's only okay. At level 3, you're going to get enhanced mobility. When you're not wearing any armor or using a shield, you get an additional +4 bonus to AC against attacks of opportunity when you move out of a threatened square. So this just basically doubles the mobility bonus. So now you get +8 to AC, but you gave up so much of your armor class that it's really not that big of a deal. And also bonuses to AC against attacks of opportunity when you have tumble as a class skill, and it's just not very good because you shouldn't be provoking attacks of opportunity in the first place. You can take advantage of this armor class by running around and triggering a whole lot of attacks of opportunity, but that's not giving you any real benefit. And while yes, it is important to be able to move around on the battlefield, again, the tumble skill can achieve that, and with movement enhancing magic items or a haste spell, boots of speed, anything like that, you'll have plenty of movement speed to spare to deal with the slower movement from tumbling around. It's a common thing with D&D 3.5, especially like with monks, for example, where they're seen as this, tumble behind the enemy ranks and move up and attack the vulnerable spellcasters at the back. And that definitely is an important thing to do sometimes. That does happen. But it's not as important as you would think. And again, this enhanced mobility, it's a nice side feature, but as your only feature at level 3, really not very good. At level 4, you're going to get Grace. This is going to give you an extra +2 competence bonus on all reflex saving throws. And this is similar to what a swashbuckler gets. They get a similar feature, and although they get, I believe, a bonus to their fortitude saves progression instead of their reflex saves. And this is nice. This only works again while you're wearing no armor, not using a shield. If you have evasion from being a rogue, then this is a really nice feature. Otherwise, it's just kind of average. You have a D10 hit die. You might have come into this as a swashbuckler fighter with a D10 hit die. So you do have hit points to spare when it comes to soaking up damage from area of effect spells. It's a nice feature, but again, I'm really not seeing what's making this more of a duelist. Finally, at level 5, we get Precise Strike. This allows you to strike precisely with a lighter one-handed weapon, and it gives you an extra 1d6 in your normal damage roll. And this is precision damage. You can't attack with a weapon in your other hand, so you have to be kind of the einhander, so to speak, really focusing on that. You can't be doing like a rapier and dagger combination or anything of that sort. Only works against living creatures with discernible anatomies, so basically a whole lot of creatures are just going to be immune to this extra damage. But it is a free extra 1d6 damage, which really you need a lot of help when you're in melee as a duelist, because you're going to be having less strength just by the fact that you invested in your intelligence score as well, and probably your constitution being a melee fighter. And also, you're not going to be doing a two-handed weapon power attack, so you're already going to be behind the curve when it comes to melee damage dealing anyway. Now, a character like this, I could see sacrificing that damage dealing if they were going to be really good at, defense in melee combat. They'd have a really great armor class. But already this prestige class is at best breaking even on armor class with a lot of investment. I think the designers of this prestige class and a lot of other classes and prestige classes really underestimated what a big deal heavy armor is. And it's funny to go into something like Pathfinder, that's sort of the spiritual evolution of D&D 3.5, and see that the heavy armor actually got increased in terms of how much armor class it gives you. Scale mail, for example, goes from +4 to +5. That's not relevant to D&D 3.5 itself, but it is interesting to see that sort of mindset. And while there are a lot of downsides to heavy armor, and while some of the best high armor class builds don't use heavy armor at all, because simply put it caps your dexterity and holds you back in that regard, it's really difficult to get, just by default, to get a higher armor class with this limitation of no armor. Again, you can take bracers, but you're going to be still behind. So you have to invest a lot into getting the same armor class that a character would have so that you can deal less damage with a rapier. So let's hope that you really love this archetype of being a duelist. At level 6, you're going to get acrobatic charge. This lets you charge over difficult terrain. You still may have to make appropriate checks to successfully move over that terrain, but it doesn't automatically disqualify you from charging. This feature is a bit of a disappointment because you would kind of hope that it would allow you to get the sort of 90-degree turn that a lot of other features, well, some other features give you, allowing you to modify your charge. But, as is, again, it's a pretty mediocre situational feature. If this was something you got on top of something else, that'd be one thing, but this is your only feature for level 6, and that's just not very good. At level 7, you're going to get elaborate parry. If a duelist chooses to fight defensively or use total defense, she gains an additional +1 dodge bonus to AC for each level of duelist. So this one is interesting. It doesn't call out combat expertise as counting for fighting defensively, and by the rules as written, it does not count. It's a separate thing. Something like deadly defense, it lets you do an extra 1d6 damage while fighting defensively if you're using a light weapon. That's from Complete Scoundrel. That's a nice little feat. It's not a good feat necessarily, but it does help this archetype out a lot. It does call out that as long as you're taking at least a -2 with your combat expertise, that it counts as fighting defensively for the purposes of this feat. This one doesn't, and while getting an extra +7 to +10 dodge bonus to your armor class would do a lot to help this out, you're trading kind of ineffectively here. And while extra ranks and tumble do help you out, not having the option to take just like a slight penalty to unlock this bonus to armor class, it really holds back the feature. And this wouldn't be too big of a complaint if the rest of the prestige class weren't so mediocre, and if this feature weren't buried under being level 13, by which point you've already suffered through a lot of monsters tearing you apart in melee because your armor class is so pitiful. So this is a great feature, but it's placed badly, and really there should be some kind of extra little note there, similar to Deadly Defense, where you can unlock this with a -2 +2 penalty. And you might think, well, Deadly Defense only gives you an extra d6 of damage. This is giving you a huge boost to your armor class. That is true, but keep in mind that you're going 7 levels into a prestige class that required you to take multiple other feats in order to get. And at least one of those feats I definitely would not want to take as this type of character. Mobility. Dodge, I could see if you really just want to stack your armor class as much as possible. It is technically an armor class bonus, even if it's a pretty pitiful one, and there are even better options for dodge itself. But Those feats do allow you to substitute them for dodge as prerequisites, so pretty much the same thing. At level 8, you're going to get improved reaction +4. Now you get +4 on your initiative checks. And this does stack with the bonus provided by improved initiative. So you could get +8 to your initiative if you somehow had that feat, plus some other stuff. If you're a rogue, you're going to be very happy as long as you can move into melee. And, if you got something like pounce, or something you could, tumble while charging and get pounce, and this would be a pretty good feature, or pretty good option for a rogue to get in a lot of guaranteed sneak attack damage the first round of combat. But as is, again, like I said before, it's okay. At level 9, you get deflect arrows for some reason while using a light or one-handed piercing weapon. This is just cool, and definitely, while this is a very situational feature, I'll give it a pass because it really is just cool. And it coming late in the prestige class is a little bit odd because at that point you're fighting fewer and fewer monsters that are going to be shooting arrows at you. Maybe if you're fighting an arrow demon or, of course, some high-level NPCs, then that will definitely come in handy. But, as is, it would be good if this came in earlier when you could get a lot more use out of it. It'd be more of a draw. It's not a very high-power feature, at the very least. And then finally, at level 10, you get Precise Strike plus 2d6. So whenever you're using a light weapon in melee, you get an extra 2d6 of precision damage just for free. And that's really good. One thing to keep in mind is comparing this to something like Sneak Attack. A rogue with Tumble is going to be able to flank almost all the time. A Duelist won't need flanking, but they're going to be dealing a lot less damage. Now, while I try to stay away from talking too much about Pathfinder on this channel because it is specific to D&D 3.5, it is important to look at the Pathfinder version of the Duelist, which lets you add this bonus to damage right away from level 1, and it lets you add your Duelist class level to it. So that lets you get up to a +10 flat bonus to damage, which is a lot more reliable, and it is objectively better than the 2d6, just, taking the average. I mean, it's like doing 3d6 instead of 2d6, so it's a straight upgrade. And it's really important to keep in mind here also that you are going to miss out on this damage a lot against a lot of monsters. And you're already going to be struggling because you're not going to be a power attacking fighter. If you run into something with damage reduction, you'd better hope you have the right combination of metal in your weapon and alignment on your sword and magical bonus and whatever else, because you're not going to be able to punch through damage reduction like a power attacking fighter will. And that's really going to hold you back. If you're playing as your party's main frontline type character as a duelist, or a swashbuckler duelist, or a fighter duelist, you're just not going to have very good luck against the higher level monsters in D&D 3.5. Unfortunately. And the duelist is a really cool concept. The swashbuckler has a lot of the same problems. It also gives you a damage benefit, but again, it's also cut off by precision damage. And that limitation really lends to a greater issue with D&D 3.5, which is just classes that rely on precision damage suffer a lot, and the fact that it's a flat-out immunity is a huge problem for them. If it was like fortification or something like that, like a % chance to negate your extra precision damage, that would be a little bit more understandable. And a flat immunity makes sense for monsters such as oozes and elementals and the like. But for undead and stuff, I mean, even against undead or constructs, you're going to be dealing no extra damage, and oftentimes, especially with constructs, you really want to be able to deal a lot of damage. And it's not fair to pick on the duelist for this, but when you're taking a prestige class like this, and it's built around a full base attack bonus fighter going into this, then you really have to look at what kind of benefits it's going to give you to make you a viable character. And unfortunately, the duelist just doesn't hold up there. So overall, I would give the duelist 4 stars for concept, but only 2 stars for execution. And in a lot of ways, it should almost be 1 just for drawing people into this archetype that unfortunately just isn't very successful. Now, can you play a decent duelist character? Yes, so long as you're not fighting a lot of undead and constructs. You will be doing at least decent damage in melee with good precision. I think technically you can power attack with a rapier one-handed. It is a one-handed weapon, not a light weapon. It is a little bit weird to think about. You will need to invest in strength, though, and while you're already investing in dexterity and intelligence, that will be a little bit more of a struggle, plus constitution, so you can stay alive in melee, because a D10 hit die is not enough by itself. Trust me on that one. You're going to struggle a lot playing a duelist character, especially at higher levels, and that is where this prestige class is coming into its own. So speaking of that, how would I improve the duelist? Well, for one thing, honestly, I would probably make it a 5-level prestige class. I would double up a lot of those situational features like acrobatic charge, and the grace, honestly, looking at the fact that you're getting that identical feature from swashbuckler, which I believe technically will just overlap, it's not even going to stack, I would remove that entirely, and I would give some kind of other direct bonus to armor class, maybe a dodge bonus, since those always stack. Again, giving up your armor, you really need to make up for that right away. I mean, again, you're picking an inferior option for armor class already with light armor. You're picking an inferior option for damage, so one of those two really needs to improve to make up for the other one, and with the duelist as is, neither of them do improve. And fighting defensively, that's a fine way of doing it. It's like you're trading off some attack bonus that a normal fighter would be trading for power attack in order to improve your defensive capabilities. But doing that, you're getting maybe a plus 13 dodge bonus to your armor class, which sounds pretty good, and mixing that with a plus 8 from bracers at higher levels, plus your dexterity and everything like that. And you can be looking at an armor class in the mid to high 30s, but that's only applying while you are in that state, and you're forcing yourself to take at least a -4 to hit. And you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage. And you're waiting till level 7 to get that feature. So, while the duelist is possibly viable, you don't want to be the party's main damage dealer while doing this. You better have a rogue in the party that knows what they're doing, and even then, that's going to be screwing you over a lot when you fight any of the almost half of the monster manual that's immune to that type of damage. And if you are filling the rogue role and you choose to take levels in this, it's going to be hurting your stealth skills, it's going to be hurting your other rogue skills, which you want to keep leveling up, and it's going to hurt your sneak attack. You just really cannot make up for the sneak attack loss that you're going to get from this. You're going to get an extra 2d6 damage over 10 levels when you'd be getting 5d6 from taking more levels in rogue. So it's not a great option for rogues either. Overall, the duelist just seems like a cool idea that's meant for almost an entirely different combat system, and as such, really can't recommend taking it. But if you condensed it down to 5 levels and made it more like the Pathfinder one, then it could be a better option. But even just taking a 1-level dip isn't a good idea, because you wouldn't want to take those feats in the first place, and you have to take at least a few levels in it to max out your canny defense feature. And again, what you're really going for is that higher level feature that gives you that huge dodge bonus to AC, but you're going to have to suffer through a lot of levels for that, and the return on investment here just isn't really that good. The only good thing that can really be said for the duelist is that its problem more comes from the D&D 3.5 game itself, more so than the design of the class, but that's really not an excuse considering the people that made it are the ones who designed the game itself, especially given this is one of the earliest prestige classes out there. So unfortunately, I can't recommend the duelist, even though it is a cool concept. So that'll be about it for this D&D 3.5 prestige class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.